Hey everybody, it's Katie Harris, owner of Nursepreneurs, and I'm here with Joe Hunt, who is the CEO of Novo Bio Alliance. And we are just having a little technical difficulties and stuff. And unfortunately, Joe was one of the victims of the hurricane that went through North Carolina, and now he is moving up north, and we're kind of in flux here. So we're trying to make this work, but we might have to do some rescheduling. But since I've got you here, Joe, maybe you want to tell everybody who you are, what you do, and we can talk a little bit about what you guys are offering.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Katie, first and foremost. And the hurricanes in Florida all the way up to North Carolina have been quite fun. And we've got another 2 coming through. So I appreciate you guys working with me. Actually standing here in a parking lot of a Buc-ee's Georgia. Getting out of so go figure.
This is true dedication.
My dogs are U-Haul is priceless. I can flip this around. You guys would be dying laughing. But, at the end of the day, I founded Novo Bio Alliance 3 years ago. I've worked for 30 years in medicine, primarily neurospine and vascular. And one to realize that there was a lot of unscrupulousness going on, whether it be how CMS was conducting themselves with the amniotic fluid products, biologic companies misleading clinicians. Being it's Saturday Night Live. So anyhow, long and short of it is, what really caught me off guard was at the end of the day, the only people that paid the price for all of it was the clinicians. The patients were getting good results. The companies were making good money. All of a sudden, CMS makes a change and the clinicians get hurt with clawbacks, etc. So we founded Novo Bio Alliance based on the fact that, number one, every patient on the table is our mom or our dad. Number 2, every clinician will be supported, and I don't just mean with products. We run marketing campaigns for our practices, offer CMEs, networks for the clinicians to instant message each other, etc. And we basically work in a handful of silos: aesthetics, anti-aging, chronic pain, and wound care. So the highlight products in these arenas are as follows. Number 1, in aesthetics, we have a Plasma IQ pen that takes ambient nitrogen and converts it to plasma. The interesting thing about this versus full-size instruments, this actually goes through the epidermis dermis and just touches on the reticular dermis. So instead of going all the way through the reticular dermis like large instruments, it tends to be considered much safer right up to the eyelashes. We also have a exosome product that is dermal-based and umbilical cord-based exosome product that we typically see a lot of practices use for their RF microneedling, where the skin is extremely red and burning after the procedure. And since there's a 1.5 trillion exosomes in this product, and it's born of umbilical and dermal exosomes, we see patients go from very bright red and a 9 out of 10 stinging pain to a 1 out of 10 and 90% of the redness gone in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So needless to say, that not only offers a huge benefit to the patient, but it also allows your clinicians that are doing aesthetics to open up their schedule to much heavier procedures on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because the patients can go back to work the following day.
Yep.
To round out the aesthetics products, we just picked up a new product that is actually the 5 exosome packets directly from the human hair follicle. Would absolutely love to share with the group if we had the AVs, perhaps another time. But both myself and my business partner's husband have done one treatment. and both of our skin yarmulkes on the top of our heads have completely been filled in 45 days with one treatment.
That's crazy.
So those are the mainstay forefront aesthetics products that we deal in. Happy to answer any questions on those before I move to the others.
So yeah, before you move on, so the ambient nitrogen pen, so that's like a regular pen, but it uses plasma. I don't quite understand.
Yeah, so your full size plasma units typically have a nitrogen bottle attached to them. This is actually specifically designed, it's the size of a TV remote, and it has both an angled or a straight needle that comes off the front that, when electrically charged, it draws the nitrogen out of the air, creates plasma, and then shoots the plasma in through the dermis, epidermis, and part of the reticular dermis. So
Okay.
there's no tanks needed. It's a handheld that charges. It's cordless, and one overnight charge is enough to do 10 procedures the next day.
Okay. And what does that replace? Like, what would that be instead of?
Well, let's say a clinic's just starting up and they don't want to spend the money for a full-size unit. Is one. Number two, expanding to a second clinic or expanding the number of clinicians in an office. When you look at the large plasma units or even laser units where a number of clinicians have guided us, they really get trepid once you start getting right up against the eyelashes and treating lower and upper eyelids. This just provides a better level of safety in its penetration rates. It's also the only FDA approved handheld. So, and we
Okay.
are the only company that has dermatological histology studies on human facial tissue to be able to prove its depth of penetration.
Okay. And then the exosome product, that's just for cosmetic topical use, or can you use it other ways?
So the Reviva mask is the one that's post-treatment, and it needs to stay dermal because it also has, in addition to the exosomes, it also has collagens added to it. It is specifically for dermal applications. ExoGrow Pro, that is the hair follicle based exosome, can be microneedled in, or it also comes with a delivery device where there's one syringe that splits into 3 needles to spread the pain out and shorten the procedure up.
Yeah, the Mesoram.
What's that?
I said the Mesoram. That's the Mesoram. It's like one syringe and it splits. Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
Okay. Can that also be like driven in with ultrasound? You know, there's some ultrasound devices out there that say they can go subdermal.
Interesting you asked that, because we're actually looking at one of the systems that utilizes heat to allow penetration.
Okay.
But yes, you could use ultrasonically enhanced delivery.
Okay, so we have the ambient pen, the exosome products, and the hair exosomes. So yeah, that's awesome. So that's the aesthetic side. Now what else?
So when you look at the anti-aging and chronic pain side, this one product is very, very notable. It's called placental derived protein array. So there's obviously a litany of different methodologies by which we've tried to treat patients with Regen Med. Almost all of them have been putting a biologic in place to deliver the, we'll call it active ingredients, the microRNA, cytokines, and growth factors. The problem when you look at a lot of the products we've used, if they're autologous, then the patient's age, lifestyle, and overall health can severely diminish the effectiveness. We all know that. Number two, your allogeneic products are highly dependent in performance based on where they're derived from. So a great example is when you look at a Wharton's jelly. Wharton's jelly is derived from the mesoderm. The mesoderm is in charge of developing the MSK portions of the baby. Genesis PDPA is very different in many rights. Number one, it is incubated for 30 days so that it emits all the microRNA growth factors and cytokines from the meso, endo, and ectoderm, which are responsible for brain, nerve, organ, soft tissue, and MSK development. So the breadth of proteins that you find in Genesis PDPA when compared to PRP, amnio, cord blood, Wharton's jelly are 10 to 20 fold as rich and broad in those number of factors included in the product. But the really unique thing that I think is of benefit to clinicians everywhere, going back to the original commentary on the founding of Novo, let's face it, everyone in regenerative medicine has been advancing medicine faster than the government can keep up, getting great clinical results for patients, but always has to look over their shoulders on how they're marketing or what statements they're making. Genesis, because it is a incubated product, it's not extracted from the human tissue, it's not grinding the human tissue up to get the net result. And once the 30 days are up, the soup that contains all the proteins, growth factors, cytokines is then quadruple filtered to remove all cellular matter. And then it is endotoxin tested to prove sterility, lyophilized, delivered to the clinician as a powder. And the lead attorneys that wrote 21 CFR 1271, the 351, 361 biologics regulations,
Oh, good
and
Lord.
the gentlemen from the OIG and DOJ have all ruled that this is considered a cell factor. It is an exemption to the biologics laws equal to that of breast milk. So right now, the way the FDA is handling this is the labs are certified CLIA and FDA. The production process is overseen by the FDA. The sterility process, communicable disease testing, packaging, everything's overseen by the FDA. But they are treating this as a nutraceutical or a DESI, which means that they oversee everything, but they allow the clinician and patient to make the decision if the treatment's right for them. So the two key things here that are different in the product are 20 times the proteins, growth factors, and cytokines from all three tissue layers, which we'll discuss in the clinical results. Number two, that this is considered a cell factor that gives you and your able to use this everywhere from head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice that as we get deeper into this subject, there will never be a single white paper put out on Genesis PDPA specifically for a disease state. And those three attorneys said point blank, the second you do that, the pharmaceutical companies and the FDA will step in and push it in as a biologic. So rather than that, what we've done is put together all the white papers on the contents and how they affect the human body. Our protein sheet allows for clinicians to go in and click and learn each of the different proteins, growth factors, cytokines, what they do in the body. But then we realized that the best way for clinicians to learn was from each other. So, like tomorrow night, anyone from your group that would like to join, Dr. Sewell is doing a peer-to-peer introductory call to the product. He'll be showing some of the cases ranging from taking a C2 quadriplegic, full severance of the spinal cord, able to use his arms and stand, to a NFL player that was bone on bone in his knee, used Genvisc and Genesis PDPA, rebuilt the cartilage. He's back in the UFL. And you can see, you'll also see that there's other conditions head to toe that have been treated one of the things that's really interesting about the product is we've always been focused on treating an injury site. All of our doctors, let's say, I'll give you a good case study from Florida, 43-year-old ultrasound tech, 2 millimeter longitudinal tear of the rotator cuff, severe ulcerative colitis, and also systemic arthritis from black mold in his house. We'll call him T. We did one vial treatment, splitting half the vial in 3 injection sites around the rotator cuff. We then took the other half vial and did an IV push. Hopefully the ladies in this group will enjoy this because we all know how men are. Day 2, T gets up and he starts walking his dog and running around wanting to play basketball. And his wife goes, "We did not spend $4,000 for you to hurt yourself. If I see you get out of this chair one more time, I'm duct taping you to the chair." And he goes, "Yeah, but you don't understand. Like, I have twice as much energy as I'm used to having. My vision's far more acute. I feel amazing. I feel like I'm 20. So this whole example will teach you how the product is actually set up to impact the whole body. So he reported back, and we were blessed to have this ultrasound tech. He was off work, so he did a daily diary for us. Excuse me. So for the first 3 weeks, he had 90% pain resolution of the rotator cuff, 0 ulcerative colitis flares, and about 90% relief from the systemic arthritis. After about 3 weeks, he dipped back to about 50% better. Reason why is Genesis is extremely concentrated in its anti-inflammatory cytokines. So when you look at cytokine-driven inflammatory disease states, ranging from Parkinson's, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, all of these conditions have an immediate and very profound response to the treatment. So T then noticed that it got cut down to 50% better at 3 weeks. And then progressively for the next 60 days, he returned back to a final result. 90 days straight, 0 ulcerative colitis flares, 100% relief of the systemic arthritis, 90% better range of motion, and 90% pain relief in his shoulder. He went back to work, got promoted. He's now the head of ultrasound for a hospital in Orlando.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty amazing story. So, and it was just one vial of the PDPA. So, the vial is lyophilized, so it gets reconstituted, and you could put half of the vial in the IV, and then the other half you did small injections because it's not. You don't reconstitute it with a whole lot, and you just injected them blindly into the rotator cuff or into the muscle, or did they use ultrasound, or do you know?
Actually done ultrasound guidance.
Okay.
In this case, yeah.
Okay.
And so one of the things to note of what you just said, Katie, is PDPA being lyophilized. When you initially reconstitute it, you end up with 2 cc's of concentrate.
Mm-hmm. From
that, the clinician can split the concentrate. Like, I was just talking to a doc in New York today that's going to be doing a lumbar epidural, dual SIs and IV. So we were going to use 2 vials, reconstituted into 4 concentrated cc's, then take 2 cc's into the lumbar, 1 cc split in half for each of the SI joints, reconstituted though in 2 cc's because we learned the SI joint can't really hold more than a cc, but that leakage down behind the SI joint tends to also treat all the interpelvic tendons and the likes and gets great relief for the patient. And then the last concentrate CCIV.
Okay.
So this starts to get to be an art form, but when I say that Novo is built differently, number one, we started the website that now has security coded. So any clinician that's bought a vial has access to all of the dosing for over 100 different conditions in the body. Also, we have peer-to-peer case study calls once a month that all of the current Genesis users in the United States get on, talk about their top cases and tips and tricks and help each other out. Those get taped, and those videos are on the secure side of the website. Within the next 2 weeks, we're also going to have an instant messaging capability that all the clinicians can opt into and ask questions. If somebody, say, like one of our docs had a throat cancer patient that could no longer taste food and wanted to know if injecting this could help replenish or heal the taste buds, right away we were able to get Dr. Jacobson on the phone with our surgical oncologist out in Vegas. So we're trying to build a network that supports the clinicians to a whole different level, from marketing to clinical support to administrative and legal support.
Okay. So the PDPA, the placental derived protein array, they can be done IV, IM, sub-Q, epidural, intrathecal,
intranasal,
intranasal, nebulization. So really, there's wherever the issue is, you can get it there, right?
You're correct.
Okay,
and it's the art form of reconstituting it in the end from its, say, 2 cc's of concentrated state to however you deem appropriate, splitting it up. If you feel that knees are best served with 5 cc's, we have docs that'll put 2 cc's of Genvisc in for HA to get the shearing forces off of the joint, and then reconstitute the PDPA into 3 and put that in as 5 cc's.
Right. And then always reserving a little bit for an IV boost.
Correct.
Okay. And the IV boost does what?
Boy, that's sort of the most interesting question in all this. So, number one, we've seen that most people find that their energy levels and mental acuity are significantly better, i.e. reduced 20 years of what aging does to us. Myself personally, when I've had the IV pushes, I'm 51. I've joked around about the Netflix N being my optometry chart. I'm fighting glasses left and right. But what's funny is I got an IV push, and then I had to drive to Dr. Floretti's office in Jacksonville. And it, no joke, was freaking me out. Like, I thought I had 3D glasses on. What it was is I got my depth perception back. And I could actually read street signs at night from, 3/4 to a mile away instead of being 500 feet. You'll continue to find humor in my answers because, like, we were on the phone with a doc from Nashville that had just done an IV push, and he was telling Dr. Sewell, the medical director, he goes, I swear to God, I felt like Batman last night. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I could hear my kids rustling in their sheets 3 bedrooms away. Ironically, as Dr. Lay was talking about this, our California rep that we treated her Hashimoto's with and was extremely successful, she texted me and she goes, Joe, have you ever had anybody that their sense of smell went through the roof? I'm like, no, I haven't heard that one yet. She goes, well, I swear to God, you know how dogs smell each other's pee? I feel like that walking down the street right now. Then when I went through the grocery store, I could distinctly smell the difference between the bananas and the oranges. So what we found is irritable bowel syndrome. We also have seen this can heal up to 40% of the damage to the endothelial system. So blood flow tends to go up. Obviously, that impacts sexual health, can impact wound healing. So it's one of those things that the IV push, when you understand the science that we've come to learn, putting stem cells in 10 years ago, we thought the stem cells went in and said, hey, that Achilles tendon's torn. I need to become Achilles tendon cells. That's not the way they work. They actually side sit and they fire off exosomes. Exosomes are only, let's say, FedEx envelopes. The only effectiveness of an exosome is what growth factors, cytokines, and proteins are contained within. Well, because Genesis has basically the full breadth of them, when it goes in the body, the homeostasis that our bodies had pre-puberty and drops off 80-90%, throughout our teen years. Genesis actually kicks the body back into homeostasis when done IV, and it starts to actually positively impact the overall health of the patient in many different ways all at one time, just by getting the body to kick back into its own natural homeostasis. So it's tough to answer because one of our manufacturer's brothers is a 3-term combat vet, severe PTSD, suicidal, alcoholic. VA told him that 60% of his liver was dead, and he has a girlfriend, but really was disengaged, severe ED. But we ended up doing 4-vial IV push on him, and he woke up the next day. And please pardon my French, guys. Woke up the next day, and his sister, that's one of the VPs or one of our manufacturers, calls, and she goes, "Joe, have you had anybody say that they get violent on this?" It's like, "No, I have heard some of the guys' wives have said, 'Get him off me.'" He started laughing, and she goes, "Yeah, my brother called, and he said, 'Sis, this is amazing. I got my entire to-do list done by 10. I feel like $1,000,000. I'm happy as all get out, and I don't know what to do with myself. The only problem is the cable guy mouthed off to me and almost beat his ass.'" So I'm laughing at this, but the punchline is now, 60 days later, no PTSD, feels like he's on top of the world, decided to go and get a job for the first time in 3 years, and just got engaged.
Oh, wow.
And
So,
we're
but
seeing a massive impact.
what is, I mean, what is the magic sauce in this stuff, though? I mean, why does it work so much better?
Well, the magic sauce truly comes down to, let's face it, the microRNAs, growth factors, and cytokines are the active ingredient. I was trying to explain this to my mom that, the level of medical knowledge is not there. So I was trying to describe to her, okay, you're trying to make the world's best chocolate chip cookie. They're nice. I promise they won't bite you. Oh, there's two? Yeah, there's two.
You got dogs.
Yeah, some kids are playing with my dogs. So long and short of it is, chocolate's really good for a chocolate chip cookie. But if you put an entire bag of chocolate chips in, but you don't have the right balance of the flour and the sugar and the milk and the eggs, you're not going to end up with a chocolate chip cookie. You're going to end up with a bowl of goop. So the secret sauce truly comes down to not just the breadth or number of proteins, growth factors, and cytokines that are in the product, but the fact that it's also coming from all 3 layers of the placenta, which are dedicated to those specific arenas, but it's also in the exact same balance that the placenta naturally releases.
Okay.
Hopefully that gives you a good explanation. And that's why I was telling the analogy of, we've been putting platelets in, we've been putting stem cells from bone marrow, fat, everything in. And the net result is the stem cells go in and fire off exosomes, and we're relying on what growth factors, cytokines, and proteins are in the exosome packets that actually impact the site of damage or desired anti-aging.
So it depends on the stem cell, what the stem cells fire off in the exosomes. Those proteins are going to be specific to whatever the stem cells are saying they should do, whether it's appropriate or not.
Correct. So a great way of saying this is, like, let's double back and talk about the exosome or ExoGrow Pro, the hair follicle product, the hair follicle exosomes. The original version they had out had 2 of the 5 packets of exosomes, and it worked. It worked well. More like a PRP or a standard exosome hair treatment. But once they were actually able to isolate down the other 3 exosome packets that naturally occur in the hair follicle, that's what made this a single treatment reversal of baldness. And
Wait, so you only have to do it one time?
One time.
You don't have to do it like for a year?
Nope. And
Wow.
I can't wait to show you guys these pictures, because the CEO of the company was a cue ball, and I hadn't seen him in 6 months, and all of a sudden the sides have grown up, and he looks like Kramer on top with stringy hair. I'm like, Fred, did you decide to quit getting a haircut or something? He's like, no, dude, you got to check this out. Look at the progression. So we've got about 6 or 8 patients worth of before and afters that we can show you. But my point in all this is, if you were to put that Exagrow Pro that has the proteins, growth factors, and cytokines from the hair follicles, say in someone's knee, it could still have a positive impact because those three active ingredients are not mutually exclusive to any one part of the body. But there's also very good reasons why clinicians that say use exosomes, same product on two different patients' knees, one gets better and the other doesn't. Because one is a torn ACL and the other is actually a bone on bone. And they don't have the same growth factors, cytokines, and proteins in to treat the two different conditions.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, I mean, this is all really, really fascinating. And for those of you that joined us late, Joe is from Novo Bio Alliance. He's talking to us about his PDPA products, which is placenta-derived protein arrays. And unfortunately, his house, got flooded in the hurricane that just went through, and we had scheduled this webinar before the hurricane, and now has to move to another state, and so he's in flux here. So I mean, you've said so much, and I think it would be really, really helpful for us to bring you back and talk about this some more, and expose, because this is the first time. I can't imagine anybody's heard of PDPA before this. So this is the first time people are hearing about it. There's not a whole lot of information out there about it. So I think it warrants like I know you got lots of slides and pictures and stuff that you could show us. So,
Katie, if I may make a suggestion, if you want anybody that's on this call to say email you that they're interested in getting on Dr. Sewell's peer-to-peer call tomorrow night, it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, and they typically last for an hour and 20 minutes. We typically have between 15 and 30 clinicians on that all get introduced to the product from a scientific and clinical perspective. And then it inevitably spins off. We've had some of the most amazing conversation about Navy SEAL ammunition experts and how to get the lead poisoning out of them before treating. It really starts to set the stage and show your colleagues that when they get on the phone with this, they actually have a lot of peers that are specialized and can help. So I would recommend if they email you, then I can get them an invite to the call, and that might be a really nice bridge towards the next time where you guys aren't staring at me at a field in Georgia and I'm literally staring at my Rottweiler at my driver's seat wheel.
All right, this is true dedication, but this topic deserves some more. They definitely need more information, and I think that people will be very interested in that call tomorrow. And I've been to Dr. Sewell's calls, and they are fascinating, and that's how I got all wrapped up into this, because the case studies are extremely compelling. The product is very compelling. It's very, very exciting. And this, on top of losing tirzepatide in the last week, this is another angle that people should be looking at. And it's going to be extremely helpful and great for your practices. It's going to be a game changer.
Katie, may I interject one last thing?
Yeah, please.
So for everybody that's on the phone, the true nature of regenerative medicine, we all know, are top scientists and clinicians advancing medicine primarily for cash pay. Genesis was started research 19 years ago, started treating patients 4 years ago. They've treated the reinsurance industry, which I'll explain in a second, for over 3 years, and it was launched commercially in the end of February this year. If you aren't aware of what the reinsurance industry is, it is not insurance. Let's say I'm a GM employee that gets my arm caught in a machine and it tears my rotator cuff and my brachialis. GM has to put, say, 60,000 in an escrow account for my compensation. Blue Cross Blue Shield puts 100,000 in for my health care. And the reinsurance industry is basically the Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan of healthcare. They sit back and look at demographics and say, okay, Mr. Hunt, 51 years old, evidently eyesight is terrible, but the rest of him's okay. We will spend $25,000 to get Mr. Hunt back to work in 60 days. But if we do, Blue Cross Blue Shield and GM, we want a $50,000 bonus. So they're betting on getting the patients back to work. And some of these cases are $1 million cases. So Genesis has been awarded 3 of the top reinsurance companies in the world, and there's over 200,000 patients that need treatment right now. We have been setting up a shooters network in the United States and are continuing to grow that network as the launch to the general clinicians is going to occur in the next 60 days with full throttle in the next 90 to 120. And basically what it amounts to is everyone on this phone that's a treating clinician, once they've done 5 cases with Genesis, can apply to become a Genesis referral network, and they can get referrals. Nice thing is you don't actually even have to buy the medication. Once you approve treatment one of these patients, the reinsurance industry sends the meds in, and you get paid between $2,000 and $6,000 per injection. So this is completely different than just having a product that's highly effective in a cash-based scenario. This also is a way to feed an awful lot of business into your practices.
Yeah, no, it's true. And the reinsurance agents, those reinsurance companies don't mess around with things that don't work.
Yeah,
exactly. They're not putting their money on, it sounds like a gambling pool, but they're not putting their money on something that doesn't work for sure. And that was like one of the most compelling things that I heard. Like, if the reinsurance companies are investing in Novo Bio Alliance, it's not just Joe saying it's a great thing and a couple of great case studies. There's something real here, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. A lot of the white papers we've all made decisions on across all these years were funded by the manufacturer of the actual product. So, right. That is the beauty of the reinsurance, as you're stating, Katie, because they have no skin in the game. I at first, when I heard about it, I was like, that's pure evil. You're betting on healthcare. But then let's stand back and look at it, that yes, they are, but they're betting on the patient getting better. Not our typical reinsurance companies that are saying no to treatments.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's an amazing side to healthcare that I think goes hand in hand with the more advanced, forward-thinking clinicians like you have on the phone today, saying, okay, well, an unproductive member of society that's highly educated and has a great job is exactly that. Well, if traditional medicine is going to sit here and do 3 surgeries on them and shoot them with steroids, and it's going to be a lifelong problem, let's look to something like regenerative medicine that actually works.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a pretty cool blend.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Joe. Well, yeah. So anybody that's interested in hearing Dr. Sewell tomorrow, and he'll talk about this very, very eloquently, and you'll get a better understanding as well with pictures and case studies. Just email me, and I will make sure you get on that call. It is a private closed call, so you do have to be invited. So just email me and we'll make sure you get the invite. And we're going to do this again, Joe, when you're settled in Michigan and everything's calmed down for you. So.
Well, thank you very much for working with me, guys. And when we have our next call, we'll have a raffle if things keep going this way for my youngest Rottweiler that's driving me absolutely crazy. And you all. So be prepared to win a dog. But truly, thank you guys. And I'm sorry the technicalities of this didn't work out, but got to learn that Mother Nature's going to win in the end. So
always.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Bye, everybody.